What are some things you realized as you got wealthier? Technically I am much wealthier than I was 5 years ago. I've learned the phrase more money more problems is for people with no control over their spending. For me it's more money more retire early. I believe you over-enunciated that quote. That the best thing money gives me is freedom to make choices. Especially bad ones, which are far funner. Freedom is always the most important thing. You can actually do the whole it takes money to make money thing. For a long time I had no idea on how this worked. Now 4 years after opening my first brokerage account, I have learned so much. Yup, the more money you have, the easier it is to make more money. It's like that cookie clicker game. It's true when they say the first million is the toughest, because with 8% annual returns, because it'll take you decades to earn that first million, but then it'll take less than 10 years to double it to million assuming 8% returns, and less than 6 years for the next million. Combine that with using leverage to give yourself even more money. It'll take less time. Just because you can save some money by doing things the hard way doesn't mean you should. I had an argument with someone recently who was extremely pissed that I'm going on vacation but not going to do it on a tight budget. I said that I was just going to set aside some money that will be more than enough and just say frick it and not care about expenses as I know they won't go beyond that amount of money no matter what I do. They were extremely pissed. Need to have a very tight budget with every single thing planned, price checked and researched for the cheapest price possible. Yeah, I'd rather be rich in time. Fortune and luck are not ignorable. They matter more than a lot of people are willing to admit. Perhaps for ego reasons. Or perhaps they simply fooled themselves. Also, the cushion of safety and ability to have most of what you need provides a lot of dignity that can't be ignored either. I believe a lot in luck, but I also believe you can give yourself more luck. Example, going out talking to people making connections rather than just sitting in your room just wanting it to appear out of thin air. Chances are you can find someone that can give you a hand or give you information that can play a big role. More opportunity you give yourself, the more chances of success. People love to blame your success on others and take away from you. While this is true, unfortunately it is very easy to use this as an excuse for not trying your hardest, especially related to getting out of your comfort zone and trying new things. So much of success and opportunity is being okay with making mistakes or being new to something. Luck is often made. I realized how being poor makes you poor. Everything costs more when you're poor. Paying 6 or 12 months at a time on car insurance is way cheaper than month to month. So, when I was poor I spent more on that because I couldn't save or plan ahead. Buying things in bulk is cheaper, aka Sam's Club. But when you're poor, you're not buying a toothpaste multipack. Too much upfront. When you're poor, you'll buy a 0 pair of boots every year. When you have a financial cushion, you'll buy a 0 pair of boots that last 10 years plus. When you're poor, you'll buy a 0 pair of boots every year. When you have a financial cushion, you'll buy a 0 pair of boots that last 10 years plus. The Sam Vimes theory of wealth. Also, when you're poor you have nowhere to store all those bulk items. Everything has gotten so much easier now that I have money. I can afford to live in a decent place so I'm not stuck with awful roommates and or dealing with a slumlord. Decent food and other creature comforts are easier to obtain. Heck, I've even taken vacations. So many problems can simply be avoided by spending a little more money on something with a higher quality or buying some before I need it. Plus, stress is also much lower since my bank account isn't always on the brink of going into the negative. A while back my insurance suddenly stopped working and I had to pay 0 for a medication instead of. 10 years ago that would have given me a panic attack because I'd have to skip meals to make rent, but now it's just a minor annoyance that I can fix down the line. The terrible thing is, I'm not that wealthy. I make just over 0k a year, which makes me thoroughly middle class. Just by being above the poverty line I find that life gets so much easier. Getting off the paycheck to paycheck treadmill is the other big thing. Having a buffer makes a world of difference. In the same boat. Make roughly the same. Live comfortably. Although I do have roommates for the sake of putting back more, but that's more a personal choice. I'd rather put 500/month back instead of 0 or whatever it'd be. Anyway, glad you're doing well. You explained it pretty spot on. Money doesn't buy happiness so much as it buys security. There's a lot less stress about really critical issues with money, which has the unfortunate effect of freeing up your brain to be worried about more trivial things, but not having to worry about certain expenses or fret over whether a minor indulgence will set you back is simply relaxing. This is so true. It doesn't buy happiness as much as it reduces certain stresses. Being poor is scary, and frustrating and stressful as hell. Money won't make someone happy, but it will give them the freedom to do the things that will make them happy. My dad works with a lot of rich people, and the ones that are the most miserable are the ones that don't do anything fulfilling with their wealth and freedom. My dad always said that money can't make you happy. My AC goes out, I am not happy about replacing it, but I also know I can. And at least don't have to suffer the rest of the summer. Car needs an expensive repair. That sucks, but I can cover it without worrying about choosing between that and rent. Having money isn't everything. Not having it is. Right? Whoa. The same thing is true about sex and relationships. I never seen snakes on a plane. The more you make, the more you spend. And while there are exceptions to every rule and wealthy people who live frugally, you'll be amazed at how quickly you can go from "I'm never going to be one of those people, I'm going to maintain the same lifestyle as I did before" to "frick it, we're going to Hawaii." One of the best decisions I ever made was to have my pay direct deposited with my investment account. The account is configured to pay my normal checking account a set amount every month. The rest goes to savings investments. When I make more money, I don't get more money in my normal bank account unless I actively go in and change the monthly transfer. Instead, it automatically goes into savings investments. This has really helped prevent lifestyle growth from gobbling up extra earnings and has helped me create a nice buffer for the future. It isn't that hard to set up. You can still adjust your monthly transfer if you do want to have more each month. But turning it from an automatic thing to an action I had to take really made a difference. That people who have money aren't necessarily the enemy. I'm not rich, but I do alright. Stable job. Budget under control. Just got out of debt etc. Just because you're not struggling doesn't mean you took that money from anyone else or you don't deserve it, even if it's millions or billions. The people we need to watch aren't the rich. It's the people who have money and seek to control us or the things around us that we need to watch for. Yes, the wealthy always convince themselves they aren't the enemy. But if you have billions, you absolutely are the enemy of the normal man. Billions makes you a greedy hoarder who loves to see a freaking numeric score go higher. And invariably you screw others over to keep that number going higher. That being said, a few million in this day and age is just a blue collar guy who saved and invested. Most people don't become billionaire without inheritance, without exploiting other people though. Time is money. You'll always want one of those things more than the other. I'm not wealthy, but my income is enough to cover my expenses and still save a little bit. And I now realize that time is worth far more than money. It's why I always use my PTO time for vacation instead of cashing it out for extra money like all the dupes I work with. Money can also buy time. Sure, you could spend all day Saturday cleaning the house and changing your oil, or purchase a Saturday with a cleaning service and a pull-in oil change. No one ever gets to the point where they never have to care about money and can just spend with reckless abandon. But the amount you can spend without caring goes up. It's about 1,001 if you have 0,000 in the bank. You can spend 0 without really caring. But 00 still makes you worry. With 0,000, you could buy a 00 item without worrying about the cost. And so on. This is incredibly accurate. I still spend like I am making 15 per hour. But I don't sweat the things I need to buy anymore. When I was in college, my throwaway amount was about 50 cents, cup of good coffee. With a full-time tech job it was probably -10, by lunch. 30 years later it is 100. It'd be more, but I'm trying to pay off a credit card. Wealth changes relationships, and not in a good way. I lost friends because they found out I had wealth and felt that they were entitled to it, and I was a bad person because I wouldn't pick up the check for everyone at a restaurant. They never expected this before, but now they did. I started hiding my wealth from people. I drive beaters. I live in a small house. I became more conscious of people who just hate wealthy people. Found out that I have several friends who believe they are poor because other people are rich, and they blame rich people in general for all their problems, not knowing that they're literally talking to someone they hate and loathe. The thing I really found more than anything though is that money doesn't really make you happy. I'm just as lonely and isolated as I was when I was broke, and money doesn't help with that. You need to find some new friends. It's kind of an evolution of relationships. Most people have friends roughly in their income bracket. We are middle class, and I can't fathom being friends with millionaires, nor do we do much with poor people. Not that we are jerks, but because we don't have much in common and feel bad for their situation. Honestly, that you really need to practice humbleness and humility, because it's easy to become one of those people you've always despised, and financial circumstances can change on a dime. For context, I come from a family whose maximum household income at any time was around 5k. I didn't really want for anything growing up, but also I've been working since 15 to pay for my toys, clothes, etc., and was on my own paying for college. I was fortunate enough to land a career quickly out of college that allowed me to pay off my student loans within 5 years of graduating, and as I crossed into my 30s, I started making over 2x what my parents' combined income ever was. Even coming from more a humble background where my parents often reminded pride cometh before the fall, it's easy to fall into trappings. You deserve a car that matches your salary, right? Your cousin who has a job that just covers rent? He should be more ambitious. Find yourself in a debate with friends at dinner? You've got to be correct in your argument, because you're successful. Until some billionaire 5 rungs above you on the corporate ladder decides to axe your division to save a few pennies. You've got to humble yourself, because if you don't, the world sure as hell will do it for you. And the most humiliating part? Your parents were right all along. Yeah, every time I start to feel good about myself, something happens to knock me back down a peg or two. I realized how freeing money can be. Before Findom I was broke in college, but now I don't really think money or about the price of things, I just think about what I want. If that makes sense? I can afford to take risks and explore the world, and I'm not trapped in this endless cycle of working just to pay bills. Yeah, this is a good point. For context, I'm not a millionaire, but I earn 2x the median household income in my area. When I was in college, and just out of college, I would definitely look for all the specials. Consider the shelf tags. Do the math on how to keep a shop under a certain dollar limit. Pump gas to a certain dollar limit, etc. Now, I just grab what I want at the grocery store and fill my gas tank up every time. There's a strong argument to be made that I should still be practicing the same habits as before. But to your point, it really is freeing not to go into a grocery store and have to sweat your cart total. I realized that time is my most valuable asset. That's why wealthy people pay someone else to do things like cleaning their house, mowing the yard, etc. That's low value work. Wealthy people use that time to make more money. Wealthy people use that time to make more money. No, they don't. Well, okay, sure, a little. But once you've got money, it's easy to get a lot more with little to no effort. They use their time to do whatever they want. I knew a wealthy family where the wife mom just could not understand they had money now, and he had to force her to hire a cleaning service. They had this big house with 4 kids and wanted to clean it herself and was driving herself ragged. That a bigger house means bigger headaches. Yes, there's always projects or upkeep. We're looking to downgrade to a small house with lots of land once the youngest graduates. I'd rather a garden and goats versus a 3rd bathroom. Ain't that the frickin' truth? Money doesn't fulfill you, but the thought of being financially stable and debt-free gets rid of some worldly problems. Oh, this yes. Being financially stable is part of living a decent life, but tons of money don't make you feel happier. I realized more once I lost my wealth. I realized that my happiness was not related to all of the material objects I had collected. I was obsessed with my watch collection and could afford more drugs. Somehow these things became more important than my beautiful family. I lost everything. Wife and kids gone. Money gone. Career gone. I was in such a dark hole for a long time. I've been sober for 6 months now, and slowly things became more clear. I was able to help people again through my passion, photography. I've been working on a project to shine some light on addicts and homeless in Chicago. Helping others and being proud of my work has been a lifesaver. My sons are still not back in my life, but besides that, all of the pain was worth it. I've never had inner peace before. It's priceless and all of the money in the world can't buy it. Sandwiches made with Oro wheat bread really do taste better than when made with Wonder Bread. That inflation keeps taking my goals farther away even though I've saved so much. I got all excited lately because I'd reached my savings goal I set in 2017 for how much I wanted to put aside before I looked into buying my first house. I looked at how ridiculously much housing prices in my area have gone up in recent years, especially after the pandemic recently, and I'm still far away unless I wanna just put about 5% down. I think I'll just do that in like a year's time anyway. But it's really disheartening to think if I'd just been born a couple years earlier how much easier everything would be. It seems like everything inflates out of reach just before my life gets there. Similar experience for me. That's just housing RN. It'll correct slow down significantly. Maybe instead of saving for what you want in a traditional savings account, you should look at investing. Everything from CDs to index funds to the full-blown stock market yield a greater rate of return than a traditional saving account. With varying degrees of risk, you should consider watching Graham Stephan or Dave Ramsey on YouTube. There are also subreddits like Our Personal Finance and Our Wall Street Butts. There are so many different sources for info. It's worth looking into. You can have too much stuff. Money can't buy happiness in all facets of life, but definitely facilitates the pursuit of it in many. For example, money can't buy you a happy, healthy relationship. Some of the richest people I know have the worst relationships and some of the least well off have the strongest, best ones. So money can't buy you this happiness. But if you're poor and working 2 jobs to make ends meet, it's a lot harder to go looking for love. Both because of time and budget. So money can facilitate the pursuit. In a similar vein, with hobbies. Some people I know will buy a ton of gear now that they can afford it. But that doesn't fulfill them. On the other hand, I sure am happier wrenching on a car that I can pay for modifications on than just dreaming about it. So again, money can't buy you happiness. But having money sure as hell is better than not having any. The difference in quality between cheap crap and middle range is often far larger than the difference between middle range and very expensive. Even though the price gap is about the same or more, often, the very expensive stuff is little or no better quality than the mid-range. It's just prettier, flashier. But paying for better quality, over the cheap stuff, i.e., buy upper mid-range for most categories, usually pays for itself and then some, in the long term. As others have mentioned here, that's one of the things that kills poor people's budgets. They can't afford better quality when they need to replace something. So then they end up having to replace it again much sooner. But when you can afford it, spending twice as much might get you 5x the longevity. There are always wealthier people. Wealthy people hang out together. Based on comments you can see why. Which in turn creates more opportunity to generate wealth. Salary is not wealth. That's temporary money. Diversified income generating investments are the foundation of wealth. If I could go back to my 20s and spend even a 1/10 less on stupid crap and instead invested, I'd be better off today. Hanging out with wealthy people is expensive. If you are not careful and try to gain wealth through point 2, it will negatively impact point 3. What?